before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family, there is sorrow in my town, there is panic in the nation, there is wailing the whole world round. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, may the elders be more wise, may the winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty yoke to hold my confusion, give me a desert to hold my fears, give me a sunset to hold my wonder, give me an ocean to hold my tears. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change.
Good morning and welcome to the home of the Calgary Unitarians. If you're visiting for the first time or for the first time in a long time, know that we're grateful to have you with us. As we gather together, albeit virtually, we recognize our responsibility to be stewards of this land and acknowledge that we do so with those for whom this is the traditional territory. The people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations of Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. This was established on September the 22nd, 1877. Mohkinstsis, now known as the city of Calgary, is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. In offering a land acknowledgement, we honor those who have long been its stewards and accept our shared responsibility for being good caretakers. We acknowledge that the treaties were entered into as a collaboration between settlers and Indigenous peoples, making us all treaty people. My name is Alex Schumacher, and I have the privilege of serving on your board of trustees. I first came to this congregation about a dozen years ago And the reason I continue to come and remain enthusiastic is most aptly expressed in our standard welcoming statement, which is, we come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and act for a just and sustainable world. To me, this congregation not only constitutes a community, providing connections, fellowship, meaningful ritual, and wonderful music. Above all else though, I share the commitment to act for a just and sustainable world, a fundamental challenge to all of us in this day and age. I have one announcement. Following the service, you are invited to join us for coffee. Jane will be giving more details about this later on. There will, however, be a coffee breakout room designated UU Curious. And this is hosted by Reverend Deborah and the membership folks for those curious about Unitarian Universalism and our congregation. If you're interested, please let the coffee host, Marcia, know, and she will assign you there. I now invite Reverend Deborah to light our chalice. Thank you.
A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and inclusion, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all of this within each of us. And with these words, I light our chalice. Thank you, Alex. I add my words of welcome. Gratitude is a part of my daily spiritual practice. And this morning, I am so grateful that you are here. Thank you, this morning's team, making this service happen. Mitch and Daria, the AV gurus, and Bob, who will be doing the polishing for our YouTube. Thanks to Lynn and Mariana Louise from our worship arts team, and Triu for their musical gifts, and Marcia, our coffee host, and my colleagues on your program staff, Coordinator of Children, Youth, and Young Adults, Director of Religious Education, Sheila, and Music Director, Jane. This service is fashioned around some of the music that speaks to me of our liberal and liberating faith. The prelude, Holly Near's I Am Willing. Thank you, Jane, so much for that. Though written 15 years ago, speaks to our times and to the call and grounding of this faith. To have eyes wide open, keep hope alive, and to be active agents for change, for the common and greater good. Our opening hymn, As Tranquil Streams, has lyrics written in 1933 to celebrate the growing relationship between Unitarians and Universalists. It was sung when the vote to merge happened in 1961. Though the youth of the two denominations had joined forces in 1953, and the religious educators in 1955. I share this bit of history because it lifts up the importance of the voices of youth and educators. I have always found that this congregation recognizes this. And in my own reflection about retirement, I recall that it was as a youth, being part of a youth-led service in my congregation in Montreal, when I first heard the call to ministry. Will you please join me now in singing As Tranquil Streams?
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forth in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
Good morning, everyone. It is so great to see all of you. And I was just thinking about things of the past and hopes for the future. And I thought one positive thing that we have going on right now, being on Zoom, is here in Calgary, it is snowing outside. We've got a snowfall warning, 10 to 15 centimeters. And I just think, you know what, if this was in pre-times, we would have to scrape off our cars and come on in, and some of us would just snuggle into bed and say, we're not going in. And guess what? You can snuggle into bed and be part of the service this morning. So it's really a win-win time right now, if you think of it that way. So lots of positives going on. And this morning with the children's class at 1 o'clock today, we're going to be showcasing seeds that we're planting. So we're starting to start our spring seeds, and we'll be answering questions about that. And we're going to be talking to the children about what do they want to plant in their Minecraft garden, because we have our own virtual Calgary Unitarian Garden this year on Minecraft for the kids. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And with the youth today, I have two special guests from Permeate, which is a social ecology and community gardening organization based here in Calgary. And they're going to be talking about how to also get involved with that. So that's very exciting today. And in this week's newsletter, our CYRE Children and Youth newsletter, I've got some tips on how to help children and youth feel more positive about the future. So one way is each family night, invite a family member to talk about a success of the day. So that can include helping someone or standing up for a friend, standing up for something you believe in, a skill mastered, learning something new, an act of kindness, a good conversation. And so the goal is to focus on accomplishments. You can keep a simple journal of successes and celebrate them together. And the more success you have, that'll bring even more success. So it's like one follows the other. And so it's important to acknowledge mistakes and failures, but I think one redeeming thing about mistakes is they provide an opportunity for learning and growth. And so when we focus on the positive, we're going to bring a lot more positives to ourselves. And speaking of positives, one thing I felt a little sad about this year at Easter time was we usually have a giant egg hunt. And I couldn't do a giant egg hunt, but what came out of it this year might also be even better. So I'm going to screen share here with you. My daughter made the Egg Olympics. And so we collected all our egg cartons and made stadiums. And here is a sharing of our Egg Olympics. Here we go. Now, keep in mind, the purple one, Egbert, is the favorite to win. Keep an eye on Egbert. Yes, there's many other good contenders here as the, oh, look at the yellow one. Oh yeah, that end move was not easy. There we go. So if you have some extra eggs in your house from Easter, you can have yourself an Egg Olympics. These are the winners. This is the podium of winners from this year. Very exciting. All right, and we had some other exciting things going on too. We had from our Easter service counting how many eggs you could find in your service screens, and we had a number of contestants answer. The winning number in total was 33 eggs. Reverend Deborah was very sneaky. She had 3 eggs on the chalice table as well as the ones on the slides. And everyone who entered had a chance to draw, was entered into the draw for our super spring basket. And ooh, look at this here. Oh yes. So we've got some nice flowers here. We've got some organic free trade dark chocolate in this basket. And we have a lovely book, Rejoice Together, Prayers and Meditations and Other Readings for Families and Individuals. I know. So now to the good stuff. Who won our Super Spring Basket draw? Drum roll, please. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. It's my own drum roll. Thanks, Jane. I just tossed that at Jane. She always picks up. Thank you. She's amazing, amazing, Jane. All right, so in my hand goes, where it stops, no one knows. All right, then the winner of our Super Spring Basket this year is Charlene Hopner. Woo! All right, and so I'll email you, Charlene, and let you know how you can pick up your Super Spring Basket. And now to Reverend Deborah for our centering time.
Well, that was sure fun. Egg Olympics. Wow. So we take now time to center, to ground ourselves in being together, being in this space. And I've chosen words this morning that were written by a dear friend and colleague, Bob Janice Dillon. Some of you may recall that on my very first sabbatical, one of my first stops was in England, where he was being inducted, which is celebrated into the ministry that he was doing in and around Liverpool. He just sent me these words recently, and I wanted to share them with you all. So I invite you to hear the words, to take a time of silence, and then Tree U will bring us out of the silence. Words from Bob, titled The People Who Have Been Good to Me. I would be more cynical, I suppose, except it feels unfair to the people who have been good to me. My life, as I look back, has been littered with kindnesses. Once, a woman made me tea, asked me if I might sit in the garden, as it was such a lovely day. I was at the end of some particular rope of worries, as usual, and in the sun, they scattered. The story of my life has been the story of other people who have been in love with basic decency and ordinary mercy. I was caught up in their affairs and so made whole. Imagine holding a beggar's bowl and being given the means with which to be generous. My judgment is clouded, for I have been obliged towards beauty. Some will say I leave too much out of the moral equation. There are some people. Well, yes. And that is the thing. There are some people.
Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hold to hum. Struck by the sounds before the sun, I knew the night had come. The morning breeze like a bugle blew against the drums of dawn. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hope to hum. The ocean wild like an organ played, the seaweed wove in strands, the crashing waves like cymbals clashed against the rocks and sands. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hold to hum. The last of leaves fell from the trees and clung to a new love's breast. The branches bare like a banjo mourned to the winds that listen the best. Lay down your weary tune, lay down. Lay down the song you strum, and rest yourself 'neath the strength of strings no voice can hope to hum.
Thank you, Triyu. At the foundation of our faith is the recognition that we are bound together in the great web of life. Giving substance to that awareness, we turn to honor the joys and sorrows that we share, knowing that in so many sacred ways, what touches the life of one of us affects us all. On our beautiful blue-green planet, there are countless causes for concern, situations that touch our hearts and call for compassion. This morning, we hold in our hearts all those who now live or continue to live in turmoil, all those whose lives are beset by fear, so many different fears of what the future may hold. We hold those who are displaced and those who are worried for their own well-being and for the well-being of those they love. We carry with us many personal concerns as well. We hold in love and care this day all those contending with illness, including those impacted by the escalating wave of the pandemic, and those healing from pain be it spiritual, physical, or emotional. We continue to hold Dorothy in gentle, healing energy. We think of those struggling with the hard and heartbreaking stuff of life. Thinking of those we may be carrying in our hearts, let us now lift them up in silence. Or if you like, post their names in the chat for others to know and add consoling energy. As you do so, I light our candle of sorrow and concern. We do carry so much sorrow and anxiety these days. And yet, there is also joy, for such is life. Sheila's named a few, and I thank you for turning around the idea of the snow being a grateful gift. And also to Jane for saying it is giving moisture and nourishment to our gardens. There are causes for celebration and gratitude and milestones of all kinds. I know there's a birthday today for one. Yesterday, when I was putting this together, I said there is a feeling of spring almost in the air. It shifted a little this morning, though tomorrow or the next day, I'm sure it'll be back. There are some here joining us for the first time, and it is a joy to welcome you. There have been meetings of new grandbabies, new homes found, moves on the horizon, which can be both a mix of joy and perhaps sorrow, for sure, reminiscing. We celebrate that so many who choose to are receiving vaccines. And last Sunday afternoon, a convoy of over 50 cars honked and drove by the home of Helen and John Backhouse to bid them farewell as they make their move to the Edmonton vicinity. It was such a joy to see so many people out and to be able to celebrate in the only and limited way we can these days. What other joys do we have to share today? Let us lift them up now by speaking them aloud or in silence in your own space, or by posting them in the chat for others to add their good wishes. I invite you to do so as I light our candle of joy and celebration. And I light our global candle today to acknowledge Earth Day on Thursday, April 22nd. It was first celebrated in 1970 and annually around the world since then. Our seventh Unitarian Universalist principle states we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. We recognize that every day needs to be Earth Day, and that everyday actions are required to live true to this principle. With these words, I light our global candle. And now I'd like to invite the members of our worship arts team, Lynn and Mariana Louise, to invite you into a responsive reading.
Please join us in reading responsive reading number 591. I call that church free. Those who became part of this community before Reverend Deborah came, please join me in reading the bold text. And for those who joined the community since Reverend Deborah came, including our visiting folks today, please join Lynn with the italicized text. I call that church free, which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence.
That sustaining and transforming power not made with human hands.
It binds together families and generations, protecting against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute truth or authority.
This covenant is the charter and responsibility and joy of worship in the face of death as well as life.
I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship.
That protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom, that yearns to belong to the Church Universal.
It is open to insight and conscience from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to new and broader fellowship.
It is a pilgrim church, a servant church, on an adventure of the Spirit.
The goal is the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, the one for the liberty of prophesying, the other for the ministry of healing.
It aims to find unity in diversity under the promptings of the Spirit that bloweth where it listeth and maketh all things new.
Those words were written by James Luther Adams, known as JLA, Unitarian Universalist minister and professor of ethics at Harvard. He wrote them 50 years ago or more, and still they ring so true today. Echoes of revere the past and trust the dawning future more. A faith grounded in reason and open to wonder and possibility. Ready to embrace new thoughts, move to action by conscience, and on an adventure of the Spirit. The song Wake Now My Senses, with lyrics by Reverend Thomas Michelson, who died a year ago yesterday at the beginning of this pandemic, were written for the ordination of a minister of religious education. Those religious educators do inspire. These lyrics I have always felt speak to the fullness of our liberal and liberating faith. Liberal in its openness to new ideas, changing thoughts and awareness, as well as differing perspectives. Liberating in the solid foundation of love-directed hope, call to action, and recognition of interconnected relationship. This song was sung at my ordination and both installation ceremonies. These lyrics will be our guide as we sing and reflect, and we'll do it in parts. So first, please join in singing verses 1 and 2.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now, my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime.
First and foremost is the invitation to bring our whole selves, all of our senses, to this amazing experience of life. To feel the power in all, with love showing the way, is an invitation into deeper and more authentic relationship. Our senses are awakened in relationship to our environment with other beings. And I might add here, right relations with all beings. Relationship is at the center. We are a relational faith. And how we choose to be in relationship is often expressed through a covenant, promise, and purpose about how we will be in relationship. And the second verse, reason. Reason may be an internal process, yet it is informed by our relationships with information, for one thing, and struggling for deeper understanding and the search for meaning. Hearing the earth's call may well be the most important issue of our time. And I find myself reflecting on the indigenous understanding of thinking 7 generations forward, of thinking about our children's and our children's children's children and what we are leaving them. I want to express my gratitude to the Green Sanctuary Committee for the viewing of the movie Kiss the Earth. It's on Netflix. If you have not seen it, it is a message of such hope. I must say that retirement, well, aging really in general, has me thinking more and more about the beauty and the wisdom of time. And I think we are challenged, at least my generation, to recognize the important place we hold as elders, as those who can mentor those coming after us. It's a challenge in that we don't necessarily have that as a mindset, and yet it's one to move into. I believe this may be the next calling in my world, to really step into elderhood and the importance of mentoring the coming generations. I'd like to invite Lynn to share a reflection as well.
Now that, excuse me, now that our time of parting is rapidly approaching, Deborah, I find myself saying 11 years already. How is that possible? It's been a journey of exploration and growth. And we as a congregation have learned a lot about shared ministry from Deborah, wrestling with the challenges of being in relationship and stepping up to the plate, living up to our values, sometimes falling short, but more often surprising ourselves with our capabilities. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. The first time I met Deborah was during her candidating week, that jam-packed week when the prospective minister is parachuted in to meet as many congregants as possible, getting a sense of who we are and how we are organized. She arrived just in time for cabaret and tower climb. That evening at cabaret, I recall being introduced to a flushed and excited Deborah who had thrown herself into our midst by climbing the Calgary Tower. an annual event many Calgary Unitarians participated in to raise funds for the Alberta Wilderness Association. Keep with the web of creation, nor vow. One of my strongest memories of the many times that I've observed Deborah walking her talk, hearing the earth call, and keeping her vow to the web of creation was her travel to the site of the Standing Rock protest. She took a risk in doing so, but her conscience was her guide after engaging in a process of discernment around crossing the border into the US with the intent of participating in this protest. Wake now, my reason, reach out to the new, join with each pilgrim who quests for the true, honor the beauty and wisdom of time, suffer thy limit, and praise the sublime. This, at least in my estimation, is what we hope to do in our church services. During Deborah's co-leadership with us over the past 11 years, the Church Services Committee has evolved to become the Worship Arts Team, a truly participatory team in the spirit of shared ministry. The Worship Arts Team is engaged in every service, assisting with planning for the church year, participating in numerous ways. And when Deborah takes her designated Sunday off, we organize and manage services in their totality. Deborah has been very generous in sharing the service reflections with others and encouraging participation. The Worship Arts Team was on the horizon from the beginning of Deborah's tenure with us. In one of my first meetings with Deborah, we talked about the initial steps that Reverend Meg, her predecessor, and I had taken in planning such a team. Deborah wisely decided at that time she must prioritize her undertakings, and this project went on the back burner for a while, but it was brought to the foreground in a revised and stronger format. Deborah introduced us to the concepts of monthly themes. This has allowed for more in-depth exploration of ideas. Our theme-based listening circles have benefited with access to reflections, including readings, questions, videos, and book lists that broaden and deepen the experiences of the participants. Deborah's support and encouragement of our adult religious exploration also brought opportunities to wake up our reason and feel the deep connection of being in all. She encouraged others to facilitate programs both with her and without her, truly in the spirit of shared ministries such as building your own theology, compassion circles, and exploring world religions. I would also like to lift up the experience of being a teaching congregation for 3 years. This was the first time Calgary Unitarians had this experience. And while it was Deborah who mentored our interns, the congregation was engaged as well, some through participation on the internship committee, and all of us through our many interactions with Samaya, Chris, and Danielle. And they have all gone on to become fully fledged UU ministers. Finally, on a personal note, thank you, Deborah, for being a catalyst in my process of broadening and deepening my Unitarian Universalist faith over the past 11 years. Now let us sing verses 3 and 4.
Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take us your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race.
Compassion is itself all about relationship and how we choose to respond to it. That verse, I think, articulates our version of the UU Golden Rule. I particularly note the word stranger, and I'm thinking about Valerie Kaur, the Sikh social activist, who says, "See no stranger." And just a sidebar, the CU Friday, first Friday in May, will have a lecture from Valerie that she offered to a UU congregation. The line in the verse, God's love embraces the whole human race, has been forever transformed for me by my experience here in Calgary. It has always spoken to me of the universalist aspect of this faith, that no one and nothing are outside of the circle of sacred embrace. The added piece comes from a member of this congregation who would come through the line at the end of the service and gently inform me of the number of times I used the term God. I will say in the early days, that was usually in a reading or lyrics with intention. And after a few years, that individual, you know who you are, came through the line and said, I think maybe I need to revisit my definition of God. This comment has been one of my greatest affirmations, for a liberating faith must hold space for the recognition of the holy, however we may understand it. A faith community is about this spiritual aspect of human existence, how we connect with that which is greater than the body's self, and how we can talk and engage with life, ourselves, and each other reverently. Wake now my conscience with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. This has been particularly poignant in the latter part of my tenure here, especially the last few years. Global events, the pandemic, the murder of George Floyd, Me Too movements, all lifting up the inequities known and yet not fully exposed. Take not for granted a privileged place takes on new layers of meaning as we engage in anti-racist work, recognizing that the majority of us hold white privilege, and we are learning how to use it with intention for the common good. The willingness to look deeply into what it means to be radically inclusive, to be beloved community, will continue. And it requires the work of all of us to enter into the oftentimes messy work of dismantling oppression. I have been so inspired by this community as a whole, and the many individuals within it who are open and willing and actively doing this work. You touch my heart, each and every one. And now Mariana Louise has a reflection.
I moved to Calgary in 1996, and one of the first things I did was join Calgary Unitarians. I had been an active Unitarian Universalist in Edmonton and had some experience and some expectations. I realized quite early that the congregation was theologically humanist, and the worship services and programming tended to be intellectual. As a mystic, I found it difficult to be truly myself. Although I felt welcomed as a person, I did not feel free to express my spirituality. As a congregation, we tended to be inwardly focused and content with the status quo. After losing 2 ministers under difficult circumstances and some time in recovery with an interim minister, we called Reverend Deborah as our minister. Vibrant, enthusiastic, outgoing, and inclusive, she took us at our word. We said we wanted to work in partnership with her to live out Unitarian Universalist values in our congregation and in the community. And the transformation began. We worked together in large groups, small groups, and individually to identify who we are and what we want to accomplish. Together, we created our current mission statement. I had never experienced us working together like that before. And the first time I read the mission statement, I was able to repeat it from memory. And I have a hard time repeating my own name from memory. The Committee on Ministry became the Committee on Shared Ministry. We are all in this together and share responsibility for expressing our commitment to Unitarian Universalist principles and values in both word and deed. Pastoral care came to include the whole congregation, participating in various ways, guided by our minister and the caring team. We created caring shawls, participated in Super Sunday lunches, had food available for those in need in our freezer and our cupboard. Opportunities to be involved became more open and obvious, and became as much about recognizing our gifts and interests as about being in service. We were able to enter into leadership opportunities knowing that our inherent dignity and worth would be seen, even in failure. When we established theme-based listening worship, it allowed us to explore a theme more deeply in worship, in themed listening circles, and as individuals, deepening our relationships with self, with others, and with the sacred. Our worship is intelligent, but it's now also of the heart. We reach out more, and there are opportunities to share our spiritual experiences. We began to pay more attention to those attending and participating and their needs, but also to those who were not there and why. We committed to becoming radically inclusive, considering physical barriers, theological differences, economic and social circumstances. We installed lifts. We made our washrooms non-gendered, lowered sign-up sheets and information so it could be reached more easily by all. We paid more attention to invisible barriers, allergies, food sensitivities, mental and physical health issues. We started using technology more effectively and extensively. And because of that, we already had many things in place when COVID-19 struck, and it has made it so much easier to stay connected now. We began to deepen our relationships with the larger community. We are among the founding members of the Calgary Alliance for the Common Good and for the Calgary Interfaith Council. We partnered with others in the community to sponsor refugees. We became well enough known that we've been invited to speak at vigils, peace celebrations, etc. And just recently, we created and have agreed to our Covenant of Right Relations, another aspect of discovering who we are and a promise to each other about how we will behave and engage with each other in relationship. Much has changed over the years, and yet there is much to do. May our previous and ongoing successes inspire us. And may the things we have learned facing challenges strengthen us and bring us closer together as we continue to build this beloved community, to grow in wisdom and to welcome and deepen relationships and act for a just and sustainable world. And now let's sing together the last verse of our hymn.
Wake now my vision of ministry clear, brighten my pathway with radiance here, mingle my calling with all who will share, work toward a planet transformed by our care.
One of the aspects of this congregation that has touched me so deeply is the generosity that is expressed in so many ways. The generosity of spirit, the generosity of offering ideas, thoughts, and contributions of many kinds. Now, a particular invitation to generosity from our Board of Trustees. Alex?
At this moment, I would like to return to the thoughts on the importance of this congregation to each of us individually. So please take a few moments now to appreciate our connections, even if we have to maintain many of them virtually, and to recognize that we are together, we're not alone. Our connections to our community are especially important in this challenging time. This congregation's vitality and ability to play such an important role for the community that Mariana Louise just emphasized is sustained by each of our willingness to give and receive. Please consider now how you might further your role in the congregation, either financially or equally by contributing your time, knowledge, and skills. Thank you very much.
My hope is that the legacy I will leave here includes fully engaging and continuing to engage shared ministry. Each and every contribution welcome a real shift from the me to we. This has been lifted up as a challenge for our denomination as we are so fiercely individualistic. Sometimes that has thwarted the possibility of collaboration, the true mingling with all who will share within and beyond our congregation. Hope to leave the openness to differing theological understandings and a curiosity about them. And also the ongoing personal and institutional work of radical inclusion that includes accessibility for all and dismantling oppression. Let us close with a song by Canadian UU composer Joyce Poley, who has played a very significant part in my healing journey and transformation. These lyrics speak to me of the feeling I get when we are together. Please join in our closing song, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
We affirm that love is our greatest purpose. Accepting one another is the truest form of faithful living. The search for truth is our constant star. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to find hope in times of fear, and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as a beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life. And with this, we extinguish the light of our chalice, taking its warmth and the love of this community into us that we can shine it more brightly in the world. Let us extinguish the chalice.
It's been a warm-hearted morning together, friends. Let's take that energy and continue on into our virtual coffee time together. To get to our virtual coffee hour, all you have to do is to click on the link that has just appeared in the chat area of your Zoom screen. And now let's sing together our final and closing benediction. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirring
move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Speak